All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of In Liberty and Health. Hopefully, wherever or however you're doing, however you're listening, whenever you're listening, hopefully you're doing well. Checking to make sure everything's good on my end. Should be. Everybody, if you're in the chat right now, please hit a like, leave a thumbs up, retweet this if you're watching on Twitter, like it if you're on Twitter. That would mean a lot to me. I would really, really appreciate it. It helps the show kind of get out there. Today, we're going to be talking about what's going on over in Iran because it seems like we're going to be going back to war because that 12-day war, which I was told surely tied everything up and was the greatest operation anyone had ever seen, didn't quite seem to be that way like we predicted on this show. And anybody in the anti-war anti-imperialism space really kind of predicted that it would go this way, essentially, that this was just kicking the can down the road. This never was going to be a long-term fix where they struck Iran and then all of a sudden everything was good. That just was not going to happen. So we're going to talk about that and just some general thoughts of everything that's going on lately. And yeah, so that's all. That will all be good stuff. Please consider becoming a channel member. We got quite a few here. So shout out to channel members: Abrogate These, B Cornish, Trade 50 Daniel, Rachel Wilson, Gage WL12, and the newest member, Lee R. Silver, just joined a couple days ago. I appreciate all you guys. Helps me kind of keep at it and keeps me inspired to produce more, hopefully, quality content and gets more and more people in here in the little community that we're trying to build here. So hopefully you all enjoy, and please consider becoming a member with all them for the lowly price of $2.99 a month. I try to make it as affordable as possible. And I do some content there occasionally, but I just want to make it affordable so that if people feel like they want to support me, then you could just pitch a couple bucks my way. It would go a long way in supporting me. And if you don't feel like quite doing that, you can always leave one-time super chat. I really, really appreciate that. And of course, if you can't even do that and you don't want to do that, that's perfectly okay. Just leave a thumbs up on the video. I'd really, really appreciate it. As far as other things go listen to A Common Crown, acommoncrown.com. Check out Slow Down is our new tune. We just added all of our new dates on acommoncrown.com. The website's all up to date, so that's really, really cool stuff. We're going to be playing some shows in Ohio, up in Erie, obviously here in the southwestern Pennsylvania area. So lots of cool shows coming up in the near future. So please make sure if you're in the area, come check us out. All that stuff at acommoncrown.com. Go to tigerfitness.com/Kyle M. Use code Kyle at checkout to let them know that the Matovcik family sent you and that you support the Matovcik family whenever you think about getting your supplements, get you all jacked and tan. I would appreciate that as well. And of course, the greatest coffee you'll ever drink, Fox and Sons Coffee. It's downstairs. My dear friend Steven had just sent me a bag of the Brazil from the Brazil honey prep, which I was a big fan of, and I had had in quite a little bit. I was drinking the Colombian roast, and now he finally sent me that. So use code Kyle checkout to let Steven know that I sent you. And other than that, let's get into the rest of today's show. Boom, one more time. Hopefully, wherever, however, and whenever you're listening, hopefully you're doing well. Today, we're going to be talking about Iran. Let me address these comments real quick. Army veteran free advice. No, do not go overseas to fight in the next war, no matter where. Be able to see through the agenda. Do not lose life, limb, or time for excuses. Hell with the king. I like your perspective there. As I said in the comment, he dropped in before the stream, 1439 315. I appreciate it, man. And yeah, I completely agree. Do not go fight overseas in today's wars because they are not wars that are protecting our country, life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness. They are wars of choice that continue to waste taxpayer dollars and kill the very greatest amongst us who want to serve a greater purpose in our world, our society, our culture, and they get some things in return, but I think the things that they have to go through aren't quite worth that prize in return. But of course, that's up to every single individual is to decide how they want to do that. I did not join the military, never fought in the military. I thought about it briefly, but ultimately never did. Engage WL12, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. I appreciate it. Just started listening to your music, solid band. I really, really appreciate that as well. So if you want to find out what he's talking about, one more time, acommoncrown.com. We just released a new tune last week called Slow Down. Got a couple more on the way. We're writing new stuff all the time, but we have about 4 more that are already recorded, and we just gotta put vocals on them, and they'll be good to go, so I think everybody's really gonna enjoy the ones coming up. Slowdown was a little bit slower. I don't wanna say it's a ballad, but, it's a little bit less, it's different than the other ones we recorded, but all the songs that we recorded recently are pretty different, so, at least from our regular repertoire, so hopefully you guys all like that stuff. Go join Gage, become a channel member for $2.99 a month, and of course, go check out a Common Crown. It would go a long way in supporting me. And of course, Gage also gets access to all of Common Crown's footage that I get because he is a channel member. So, of course, that's all good stuff too. So, I was told, and I'm sure everybody can probably remember when the 12-Day War happened. The 12-Day War, which started in June 10th, I wanna say. Let me, we'll pull this up. We're gonna look this up together. The 12-Day War. Where is it? Oh, the 21 day. No. Duh. The 12-Day War. Okay. Operation Rising Line, as they called it. They have these gay names for all this stuff, but whatever. So the 12-Day War, we were all told, was just the greatest thing ever, and that Trump exercised precision military. Oh, what the hell is going on here? Why do I not have my background? Anyways, we were told that Trump did the greatest thing ever by doing the 12-Day War, and that it solved the issue, and that Iran wasn't a threat. It took away Israel's casus belli, which is basically their reason for going to war with Iran. But once again, everybody who knew anything about the situation knows that that was bullshit, and that we largely entered a war of choice for Israel. And Peter Schiff likes to say this, and I actually think it applies here as well, where we checked into the Iranian war motel, and now we can never check out, because once you break that taboo and you don't actually fundamentally solve the problem, you don't decapitate the ayatollahs, you don't militarily, um, you don't, I'm sorry, decapitate the mullahs, you don't take out the leadership, you don't do some kind of military occupation, which I do not support. But if you don't go to long lengths to make sure that they're not going to enrich uranium again, then all you did was once again kick this project down the road. The Iranians were never going to give up their nuclear program. They don't have a nuclear weapon, but they feel nuclear enrichment is a right they have as a country, and they chose to go up to nuclear enrichment after we left the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, back in 2019. All throughout the Biden administration, so from 2021 up until 2025, right? The Iranian government was really trying to get back into the JCPOA. They basically said, "Hey, just say you'll get back into the JCPOA for this term, and we'll get rid of our, the 60% enrichment, which are up to now, which only got up to once we left the JCPOA." Now, I've heard people criticize that deal. Oh, you gave Iran billions of dollars of cash, which actually didn't happen. We were giving them money back that we stole from them, which that's not giving them money. There's a difference between giving someone money and then giving them something that you stole from them. You could say we gave them money. I guess that part's technically true, but that doesn't paint the whole picture. We seized billions of dollars from Iran. And then also you'll see people talk about like the US government giving them money, but a lot of the times this is just projection of economic activity where sanctions relief would happen to take place, which we never relieve sanctions off Iran. One more time, people, if you're listening to the video, please give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. It helps the video keep going in the algorithm. Trying to do some new stuff with the channel, so hopefully everybody likes it, and hopefully the information I'm providing is valuable. If you do think it's valuable, one more time, leave a super chat, thumbs up, consider becoming a channel member. So the JCPOA had limited enrichment down to like around 3% of enriched uranium, which really you can't do that much with. You could do some powering, I guess, but you can't build a nuke out of 3% enriched uranium. You can't build out of 60% either. You can only build it when you get up to, I think it's 93% enriched uranium. And then you also need something for the fuel cycle and all this other stuff, which Iran doesn't have. When the US left the JCPOA under the first Trump administration, that was when they started enriching uranium up to 60%. It was a gradual step up over the course of 2019 to I think it was 2021 is when they finally got to 60% enriched uranium. That didn't have to happen. That was a choice. And it was because Obama got into the JCPOA, which largely had stabilized relations, had some sanctions relief, and had bettered the situation between the US and Iran. When Obama did that, of course, everybody lost their mind, and that was why the US had to get into the war with Yemen and, allow the Saudis to enact a blockade upon Yemen, the poorest country in the Middle East, and then kill thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people over the course of the next few years. And Trump, of course, vetoed ending that. The casualties had lessened under Biden, but the blockade was still largely there. Um, so they kinda had a little bit of something going good when Obama entered the JCPOA. Trump leaves the JCPOA, and then now the situation gets worse and worse and worse. And of course, the Joe Biden administration's foreign policy was no negotiations with anyone, anytime, anywhere, no reasons. We do not communicate, which is a very dangerous way to operate as the United States government. Fortunately, only a few disasters broke out. Just the disaster in Ukraine, the disaster in Israel, and there were some other minor disasters, but the main disasters we're talking about that broke out under Joe Biden were the Israel-Gaza war and, of course, the Ukraine-Russia war. We were told that both those were going to end, and it's funny that you always heard people talk about how Trump said he was going to end the war in Ukraine on day one, right? And there were people who sincerely believe that. I never believed it, and I predicted on the show that that would not happen. I was vindicated, and it's funny how people never took to the "I'll end the war in Gaza on day one." No one went around saying he's going to end the war in Gaza on day one. Because how could you believe that? The president who said he is the most pro-Israel president in U.S. history, Donald J. Trump, most pro-Israel president in U.S. history. How are you going to believe that he's going to end the war in Gaza, end the Israeli genocide of the Palestinians on day one? How are you supposed to believe that? If you apply that logic to the Ukraine war, then you would have known that he wasn't going to end that one either. Because the way he was talking about ending it was giving Ukraine da 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 more weapons. And of course, they did that. And here we are a year later, and we are no closer to a peace deal than we were when Donald Trump entered office. In fact, we're probably further away. The Russians have been very clear what their goals are, and it is not NATO security style guarantees, Article 5 security style guarantees for Ukraine. That will not work. The Russians will not accept that. You hear people talking about this peace board as well, or the board of peace, right? They have all the countries that are like aligned joining this board of peace. Like they threw Putin an invitation. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no. He said that he was okay with using $1 billion of frozen Russian assets to rebuild Gaza, but he's not going to join the board. Why would you join the board with a country that you're actively essentially fighting a proxy war with? Like I see all these people who you could call them plan trusters for lack of a better word, talking about how oh, this is how this is all going to work out. No, it's not. Trump is still sending weapons, intelligence, everything to the Ukrainians. It's more than likely true that Trump's CIA is what allowed the strikes on Putin's residence. How are you supposed to take those people seriously as good faith negotiators on the other side that they actually want peace when their, part of their government is overseeing strikes on your home? The idea that the border peace was going to solve anything is ridiculous. You have Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, the longest serving Israeli prime minister, who is a war criminal, who has slaughtered the Palestinians recklessly for the last 3 years, who allowed the Hannibal Directive on October 7th, 2023 to be deployed, which is when Israel kills their own civilians rather than let them get taken hostage. Yoav Galan admitted this. You can find this in popular Israeli newspapers where Yoav Galan admitted, the defense minister at the time of October 7th, 2023, he admitted they used the Hannibal Directive on the Israelis on October 7th. So we still don't know how many of those 1,200 people were killed by Hamas or were killed by Israel. Anyways, the idea that you're going to have the prime minister of Israel on this board of peace, and that's going to somehow lead to peace, in Gaza and Ukraine, it's nonsensical. It is completely nonsensical. I don't think anybody outside of the West or that isn't getting ass loads of cash from, the US and the EU. I don't think they're taking that serious because once again, they're belligerents. They're actively funding wars against you. Why would you take them seriously? So, getting back to Iran. I'm full of rant and raving today. So the JCPOA was tore up, and they had essentially tensions continue to rise. And then Trump gets in, and then of course he is the most hawkish president on Iran. Okay, so hold on, let me read this. He helped fund and arm Ukraine in his first term, gave them weapons Obama didn't feel comfortable giving Ukraine, also tore up the INF treaty. Yes, it is a very good point, Gage. That is true as well. And see, this is another reason why I knew that Trump was going to end the war in Ukraine, because he was pretty hawkish on Russia in his first term. He threw out Russian diplomats, to your point, tore up the INF treaties, and then sent the Tomahawk missiles into Ukraine, which Obama would not do because he felt that would be too escalatory. And when Trump was asked, and I've tried to find this interview, I remember watching it. I remember him saying this. Um, I want to say it was a debate, but it might not have been. I know I watched him say this though. He was pressed on how he would end the war in Ukraine on day one. He said, "I'll tell Russia, you better not act up, or else I'll give Ukraine more weapons than they've ever gotten. And I'll tell Ukraine, you better back down, or else you don't know if we're going to come to your backing." It was like strategic ambiguity for Taiwan and China, right? Where basically you tell China, don't fuck around because you don't know if we'll protect Taiwan. You tell Taiwan, don't act up because you don't know if we'll protect you. He basically said that, except for Ukraine. And I'm like, if you're just going to do the Joe Biden policy, which is what they have done over this last year, this is not going to bring the war to Ukraine an end. I've had so many people try to tell me that it would, and I have no choice but to laugh at them because it just doesn't make sense. He's not going to do it if they continue on the same trajectory. And then you have Marco Rubio, who's trying to leave in or take out the part where they exclude NATO membership for Ukraine. So yeah, Gage is a very, very good point. Yeah, the Tomahawk Javelin anti-tank missiles that Trump sent in 2019, which were actually the cause of his impeachment largely. He held up those weapon sales, and then they had that call with some Ukrainian diplomat where they wanted to find dirt on Joe Biden. That was largely because they considered that a quid pro quo. That was a reason for part of the impeachment. But then he caved and gave him the weapons anyways. And then he still to this day brags about sending weapons to Ukraine. So I don't know. The people who say that like that wouldn't have happened under Trump and that Trump was seeking an end to the war in Ukraine, I just like, where do you get that? Because he could say that. And yeah, it sounds nice. I wish he was, being honest about that. But the policy is completely, 180 degrees of that. Anyways, JCPOA is torn up. They leave that, and Trump kills Soleimani, right? Iran's foreign policy, as I've covered on this show for years now, has always been that of great restraint. They do not go out and commit hostile acts. They'll telegraph what they're going to do in advance, and then they drop some bombs. Nobody usually gets hurt, and then they carry on about their lives. The 12-day war, or Operation Rising Line, is we're going to read right here. Let me pull this up. I've had this up forever, and I've just been bullshitting. The AI overview from Google, so take it for what it's worth. It could be better, could be worse. The 12-day war, also known as Operation Rising Line, was direct, intense, and short-lived military conflict between Israel and Iran from June 13th to 24th, 2025. Following years of shadow warfare, Israel launched massive airstrikes on Iranian military and nuclear sites, prompting Iran to retaliate with missiles and drones with U.S. involvement. Key details of the 12-day war include trigger in action, which I think I think they just throw words together. The war began on June 13th with extensive Israeli airstrikes on roughly 100 targets in Iran, including nuclear facilities at Isfahan and Natanz. And I forget what the other one was. I always forget one of them. Iranian retaliation. Iran responded by launching 550 ballistic missiles and 1,000 plus suicide drones targeting Israeli cities and military sites. And part of the reason that they targeted Israeli military or Israeli cities is because they have the Mossad headquarters and other military operations in residential neighborhoods. The U.S. involvement. The United States participated on June 22nd by deploying B-2 bombers to attack underground Iranian nuclear facilities. The outcome, a U.S. brokered ceasefire was reached on June 24th, though the conflict left long-term regional tensions high. Impact. The war is considered a watershed moment that exposed weaknesses in Iran's military, with reports highlighting the conflict as a significant strategic success for Israel. Yeah, no, not really. Gage, your question or your comment here. Before second term even started, he helped orchestrate the passage of the $100 billion war funding for bill for Israel and Ukraine while campaigning he won wars. Yeah, actually, what's hilarious is that my buddy Brad Pierce and I did a whole show on that. And that should have been one of those moments where everybody was like, oh, Trump's really not on the other team here. There's a little bit of bickering back and forth, but when it comes to supporting war, they're on the same team. There is no question about that. People can claim that Trump is some dissident, some anti-establishment figure, which is laughable in 2026. But that moment should have been a big watershed moment, like I just read for the whole 12-day war. That, like, oh, Trump's really not against all this. He's for this. So, like, why did you guys still believe him when he said all this stuff? So, I don't know, man. Let me run an ad real quick and we'll get right into the rest of the show. Where the hell is all my stuff? There we go. All right, we're going to take a second today to chill and tell you about the show's sponsors, Tiger Fitness. Make sure you go to the link below to get all the supplements that I use day in, day out, and beyond. As I always say, you do not need supplements to become all jacked and tan or to progress in your health journey, but they could definitely be a useful tool in that respect. So, as you can see on tigerfitness.com, we got MTS Nutrition, Blackstone Labs, Ambrosia, HPN, Nutrix Research, America Labs, Alani New, Pump Chasers, there's Redcon One, Accent Sledge, plenty of different companies that pretty much have absolutely any supplement you could possibly think of: pre-workouts, fat burners, BCAAs, electrolyte mixes, you name it, it's on there. So go to Tiger Fitness through the link below. Use code Kyle at checkout to let them know that I sent you. Get your protein powder, you name it, anything that's going to help you stick to your diet and hopefully achieve your health goals. All right, thanks. Back to the show. JC, always good to see you. I appreciate you dropping by. Everybody, one more time, please, if you are in the chat right now, if you're watching on Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like. Please consider becoming a channel member. So, anyways, as we were talking about, the whole 12-day war basically just kicked the can down the road. And I've said that multiple times now. And you could see we're either at the point where we've run out of road or we're going to try to kick the can again. I don't know. And anybody telling you they know for sure is just guessing. But if the Trump administration strikes Iran again, which it seems like they're just right about to do it. I mean, the USS Abraham Lincoln is there within striking distance of Iran. Um, it's a weekend, which Trump typically likes to do this kind of stuff on the weekends because the markets don't go crazy. So people don't have to worry about their 401k tanking. This makes his form of interventionism a little bit more digestible for people because with war becomes with war comes instability, right? People are either going to take out of the dollar or rush into the dollar, depending on your perspective, or they're going to rush to gold because they feel like there's going to be a lot of inflation because you're going to need to print a lot of money to basically build up military assets to continue to fight said war. Trump doesn't like to get into long, drawn out wars. He likes to do drone stricken campaigns, which is kind of like fighting like a bitch, right? He doesn't want to send American troops in, which is reasonable. And I think that's, let's face it, that is kind of good that he doesn't want to send American, men and women in to die, but he still likes to basically puff his chest out and do these military operations that are low cost but high impact. We stole the president of Venezuela. That situation is still largely unsolved. We don't know what the hell is going to happen there, but Delcy Rodriguez seemed to make it clear that she still wants to cooperate with China, Russia, and Iran, but the US doesn't want her to do that. Okay, well, how do you stop her from doing that? As I've said, it has to be military occupation. What's up, Alex Patino? Good to see you, brother. Hopefully you're doing well. Um, in order to maintain the deal that they have down there in Venezuela, where Venezuela basically becomes the US outpost, you would, once again, you'd need some kind of boots on the ground in order to occupy their oil fields. You would need to either kill their military or find a way to get their military to cooperate, which I don't think they're going to because they still recognize Maduro as the president of Venezuela. It wasn't like a regime change. It was basically just kidnapping the president and then saying, all right, well, what the hell happens? Oh, I gotta sneeze, but it's not coming to me. That sucks. I'm looking right at my light to see if I can get this or if I can sneeze, but I can't. Anyways, that whole situation in Venezuela is still kind of like a powder keg right now, where that could go very, very south, or it might just kind of continue on like it is right now. I don't know what to expect. The situation in Iran right now, I don't know what to expect. Ayatollah Khamenei, which I'm going to pull up his Twitter page here. I had that pulled up because I wanted to read some of his tweets. He is tweeting up a fucking storm, and maybe that's all he's going to do, if I'm being completely honest. I don't think anybody knows what the Ayatollah and the mullahs are likely to do in the situation where the US strikes him again. So here, follow the regular update regarding Ayatollah Khamenei. Iran will firmly hold its ground and will continue to firmly hold its ground. And with the help of God, it will thwart the United States in their schemes and deceptions. Well, that was about an hour ago. Iran possesses many attractions: oil, gas, riches, mines, and a strategically attractive geographical location. They, the United States, want to seize this country just as they have done before. What is the problem between the United States and Iran? The problem can be summed up in two words. The United States wants to swallow up Iran, but two, the Iranian nation and the Islamic Republic stand in their way. We're not the ones who start the war. We do not want to harm anyone. We do not want to attack any country, but in the face of anyone who would seek to attack and harm it, the Iranian nation will deliver a firm punch, which to me, that kind of sounds like bitch shit, if I'm being honest. um, The fact that, Americans sometimes talk about war saying, "We will come with planes and ships," is not something new. The Iranian nation will not be intimidated by such statements. It is not necessary to frighten the Iranian nation with such threats. Really, it just seems like he's talking a big game, but, I don't know. Nobody knows what's liable to happen in the next couple weeks because, I have a story from Yahoo News about the USS Abraham Lincoln reached striking distance of Iran. I'll share this tab. We'll talk about that a little bit. Um with your screen share. Oh, okay, no big deal. Um, when the US struck Iran back in June during the 12-day war, they telegraphed that they were going to strike that base in Qatar and that the US should evacuate. It is not a safe assumption to continually believe that you can just poke the bear, right? Iran's the biggest, regional hegemon in that area, in that region. They could cut off the Strait of Hormuz. Do I think they're gonna do it? Probably not, because that would piss a lot of people off, including, like, some of their allies. I don't think they would do that, but they could. Do I think they're gonna go striking US ships? No, but they could, and the only reason why they would is if we back to the original point, a point I made earlier, we enter a war of choice with Iran for no other good reason other than we have an occupied government. A government that basically lives and breathes to serve the interests of Israel when it comes to our foreign policy and even much of our domestic policy. So I don't like I've said many times now, we don't know what's going to happen. If the US decides to strike Iran again, then who knows what they're liable to do. You can't always guarantee that they're going to telegraph their intentions ahead of time and decide that they're just going to say, "Hey, US, make sure you have this base evacuated. We're going to do some strikes, and you guys just have a good day." All right, cool, cool. I don't think that's always a safe bet, and the Trump administration seems to think either that's a safe bet or whatever costs that they could incur, that they're worth whatever price it is that they're going to get from striking Israel or striking Iran, which to me just doesn't make any sense. Um, good observation. There's just too much money being made in the Strait of Hormuz that includes Iran. Their only problem is that they or is that they can control it for themselves. Well, yeah, exactly. So I, I don't think they would cut off the Strait of Hormuz. I think people who are saying that, I saw, I think his name is Pepe Escobar. He said that he got a letter from a source saying that they closed the Strait of Hormuz. I feel like we would have struck them already if they did that. Some of the foreign policy analysts get a little out over their skis when it comes to stuff like this. Um, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. I there are some people I trust, like obviously the guys from antiwar.com are probably the most trustworthy that I can think of off the top of my head. Like Colonel Douglas McGregor, but he's pretty shaky sometimes. And if you look at his Twitter, it's slop. It a lot of it is slop, and some of his predictions just have not come true at all. And like some of mine didn't come true, don't get me wrong, but McGregor's been saying that Ukraine's going to fall for like years now. Is it gonna happen? Yeah. I mean, if Russia keeps taking more and more territory and the Ukrainians continue to draft younger and younger people, I mean, they had I think it was a show or 2 ago where I talked about their desertion problem. Like hundreds of thousands of people, literally like 2 or 300,000 people have deserted Ukraine and their military. So, they have a real demographic problem, and you're sending all your fighting age males into war, and then you think about, like, the Battle of Bakhmut back in, I think it was, spring or fall of 2022, it might have been 2023, where the average lifespan of a soldier was 4 hours. Mm, Ukraine could be a fallen state here eventually, but, um, one thing that I've learned in kinda doing this kinda stuff and talking about all these issues is that, things that don't seem logical or that seem crazy or seem like they can't go on forever, sometimes they can go on a lot longer than people predict. And when you try to put a fine point on something, just a lot of the times the world is a very crazy and unpredictable place. And even if you know absolutely everything there is to know about a given conflict, sometimes there are just things that come out of left field that you're not going to see that make for unpredictability. So I try not to put predictions out there. Um, but when I do, I try to caveat as much as possible because I am no genius. I would like to believe I know more than the average person, but at the end of the day, I'm just a mechanic, a father, and a musician, right? I just like to read this stuff and talk about this stuff with all the wonderful people out there on YouTube. So if you are out there on YouTube land, Twitter land, wherever, however, make sure you hit a like and thumbs up. So let's read this article. Well, actually, you know what? First, let's play this video from everybody's favorite F slur. I won't say the actual word because I think YouTube might not like it. But let's see. Let's make sure I got all my ducks in a row over here. There we go. And let's listen to Lindsey Graham. Quote, to the people of Iran, keep protesting. President Donald Trump says help is on the way, and unlike past administrations, he's a man you can count on. He seemed pretty shook up last week when he had got confirmation that the strikes weren't on, or at least so it looked. But it looks like Lindsey Graham may get his wish yet. Someone did actually a pretty good search and found that he almost never talks about his own constituents. He's always talking about foreign countries, how much he wants to blow up foreign countries. I'm sure you could probably find him talking about little boys too, because he's one of those little weirdos. Oh, no sound in the video. Oh my god, what the hell happened? Anyways, it was just basically a video of Lindsey Graham. I apologize for that. He basically just said that, if we pull the plug on the regime, then if they don't do what they say they're going to do, there's going to be 100 years of chaos, which is just laughable on its face. The Ayatollahs have been standing strong since about 1979, since the overture, or since the U.S. installed the Shah. They're not going to go anywhere. I mean, I'm sure there's some destabilization right now. Economic hard times are afoot, but they're probably going to be okay. Anyways, let's read this story. I am sorry about that. No audio there. I thought I had everything going. It said that it lost the audio earlier, but I thought that was only for that tab. Anyways, from Yahoo News, USS Abraham Lincoln reaches striking distance of Iran. The U.S. military has positioned the nuclear powered aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln and a powerful strike group in the Arabian Sea, placing dozens of Iranian targets within range of American air power. While President Donald Trump has not yet ordered a strike, he has issued a clear ultimatum to Tehran: halt the nuclear program and stop the killing of protesters, which um, I just want to say it's kind of laughable that we're really concerned about the protesters in Iran, quote unquote, if you believe it, they're really concerned about them, which they killed, I think it was over 1,000 people in the 12-day war. Um, it's hard to believe that the US really cares about those protesters. when two people have been killed by ICE, two Americans. Now, were they acting in ways that were unwise and that warranted some probably legal recourse? Yeah. Yeah, I think they were. Um, what's her face? Renee Good probably shouldn't have clipped the cop with a car. I've made this point on 5 till midnight before, but also the cop shouldn't have been standing in front of a car. Like, as far as I know, my friends who are in the police and even in the military, you don't put yourself in harm's way like that. Like, if you're standing in front of a fucking cop car, it's pretty easy. Or if you're standing right in front of a car, right? Especially somebody that you're trying to detain, it's pretty easy for them to just plow you over. You stand at the window, you stand on the side, so that way if they go to take off, they may pull your arm or something like that, but you can always back up. If you're in front of the car, you're at way greater risk of getting hit. So that officer was pretty stupid, and especially like if you got drug a week or two before that, why would you stand in front of a car again? So, and then unloading 3 bullets on a car that's moving after you were clear. Come on, man. Now once again, still a very, very bad idea. If you're being detained by police, I am not a lawyer or anything like that, but I'm going to tell you it's probably a good idea to just wait it out and wait till they let you go. Rather, if they let you go, which if they don't, I'm sorry to hear, but it's probably not a good idea to clip a cop with a car like that. Just base level analysis, it's not a good idea. Alex Preddy, the dude had broke his ribs a week before, or ICE had broke his ribs the week before. Probably not a good idea to go back out protesting. And it is your right as an American to protest, right? That's covered under the First Amendment. Of course, you should be allowed to go protest and do whatever you want. But at the same time, the video that showed him kicking the police car, probably not a good idea, right? If you're going to do something like that, they probably should have put him in jail, if I'm being honest. If you'd have faced public property like that, you should probably expect some kind of retaliation or something. You know what I mean? So, um, does that warrant a death? A death? Does that sign a death warrant? No, it doesn't. Um, yeah, it's just not a good idea. Let's see. Wide. Okay, no, I don't like that. Tall, regular. Yeah, Alex Patino, very, very good observation. Showing up to protest where everyone is agitated is not the best place to be at. I agree. I agree completely. And that is a point I've made before where it's your right to protest. It absolutely is. You should be able to protest whenever, wherever, however you want. But kicking a cop car and breaking the tail lamp, yeah, that tail lamp's not going to fall out that easily. So clearly it was probably already damaged, but still kicking the fucking police car. What did you think was going to happen? After that, though, when you have 7 dudes on top of a guy who's disarmed, shooting the man in the back, that's not honorable and it's not acceptable. So, call me the centrist normie here, but like there were mistakes made all along the way here, including with everybody involved. So, the blame goes on everybody. You could say, I don't know, man. If it was me, I'm not going to provoke a confrontation with the police. That's just not in my repertoire of things. I have way too much to live for. I have a beautiful daughter I want to see as often as possible. I like doing this. I like playing music. I like that a lot more than protesting and potentially, getting into a fight with a cop because they could decide whether or not, at a moment's notice, whether I go home or not. And yeah, it would be a national incident, but they'll still get to go home to their family more than likely. I won't if I start a fight with a cop. So I'm not justifying this, but I'm just saying probably not a good idea to piss off a cop. I understand it's your right to protest and bear arms, so it's your duty and responsibility not to put yourself in a position where bad things could happen. Agreed. It's really that simple. Once again, you should be able to protest and do whatever you want, but if you see a bunch of mass government agents, my first thought is let's not fuck with them. Let's leave them the fuck alone. We can not like what they're doing or whatever, but guess what? Those dudes at the end of the day have the legal right and are more than allowed to end your life on a moment's notice if they feel it's necessary. Don't put yourself in that position. I will not be. I agree. The fact that ICE agents were able to approach Alex Preddy means that they were not in fear of their lives. Yeah, exactly. Once again, there were 7 dudes on top of him and they shot him in the fucking back. So, um, Yeah, that whole situation wouldn't have happened had he not kicked the tail lamp, but that doesn't mean it's right to fucking shoot a man like that, right? And people are celebrating people getting shot in the streets. This isn't the America you want to live in, where the government is gunning down people, even if you don't like them. And I'm sure I wouldn't like either one of those people if I had a conversation with them. I promise I wouldn't. But that doesn't mean they deserve to get shot in the fucking streets like that. We don't wanna live in a country. I don't want my daughter to grow up in a country like that. Alex Patino, I know you got a couple as well. I know you don't want your children to grow up in a country where this is just kinda like the norm, where the government goes out and shoots people in the streets. That's nothing we should want, and that's nothing we need. Anyways, and all that to say, basically, like, we don't care about our own protesters. We're shooting Americans in the street. How are we supposed to believe that the US really cares about Iranian protesters after we bomb their country? Like, come on, man. Really? You really want us to fall for this bullshit of all fucking things? Al Jazeera reported the current buildup resembles the deployments before the June 2025 US strike on 3 Iranian nuclear sites and later attacks on Venezuelan targets, and quoted analysts who say it could indicate the Washington is preparing another operation against Iran. What US and Iranian officials are saying. The New York Times reported the USS Abraham Lincoln and 3 accompanying warships with Tomahawk missiles are now on station in the Arabian Sea after entering the US Central Command's area of responsibility in the Western Indian Ocean. The carriers F-35Cs, F/A-18E/F Super Hornets, and EA-18G Growler fighter jets are within range of dozens of targets in Iran if Trump orders strikes. At least a dozen F-18E attack jets have also deployed to the region and are stationed at the same Jordanian base where they were based during Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025. According to the Times, the flight tracking data suggests that more advanced fighter jets and refueling aircraft carrier are more moving closer, while additional Patriot and THAAD air defense systems have been deployed to protect roughly 30,000 to 40,000 US troops in the region. So I just want to highlight this part here. How dare Iran place their country right beside all these US bases, right? That's always the joke. But there are 30 to 40,000 US troops in the area where Iran could drop bombs on them, kill them if they really wanted to. That can happen. I don't know if it will, but it can happen. The Trump administration right now is flirting with a war of choice that could kill many Americans, not just a few, many thousands of Americans if they go down this path and Iran isn't as restrained as they normally are. There is no reason the US has to do this. If we believe this about the protesters, I'm sure there's ways that we could get them to get people to have them stop protesting. You could lift sanctions, for example, give them back some of the money that the US stole off of them. That might help ease the protesters. And on top of that, I said in an earlier show, this short actually did really, really well on TikTok and on here. Um, Mossad is in those protests. I forget who the gentleman was that was on Rachel Blevin's show, and she was just interviewed by, or he was just interviewed by somebody else. I can't remember who, but it was a bigger show. Oh, Vanessa Beeley, that was it. Um, he said that some of these murders that were done by Mossad, and he didn't necessarily say Mossad, but he said that there were marks of stabbings. So the Mossad is literally embedded in these protests, which their culture minister of Israel had literally admitted that Mossad is in the Iranian protests. They have agents there. Mike Pompeo said the same thing. Um, they're stabbing protesters to death. The Iranians have guns, so if they're killing protesters, which I'm sure they probably have, they wouldn't be stabbing them to death. They would be shooting them. The Mossad agents are in these protests and they're literally stabbing people to death. And there's facilities over there catching fire, which is convenient because they were just lighting fires over in Argentina. It's not looking good. And we know that once again, the US doesn't really care about their protesters. This is because this is a regional enemy of Israel, and the US wants to do everything it can to protect Israel and make sure that Israel's the regional hegemon over there, not Iran. They can't have a nuclear weapon because Israel says so. And of course, Israel has a hidden nuclear program that no one seems to acknowledge and no one likes to talk about, even though Israel largely stole that from the US. Everybody make sure you hit the like. I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Anyways, continuing on in the story here. Trump has said publicly that we have a lot of very big, powerful ships sailing to Iran right now, and that it would be great if we didn't have to use them, the BBC reported. He said that he's told Iran it must do two things to avoid military action. Number one, no nuclear, and number two, stop killing protesters. And I've said this before that it amazes me that more and more people have not made this observation, but we literally fought the war in Venezuela, which you could say was 88 minutes. If someone stole Donald Trump from our country, we would consider that an act of war. So, yes, we committed a war, or we went to war with Venezuela, firebombed their capital, killed, at least 50 civilians, dropped a fucking bomb on an apartment building. Um, they sold that on lies. The 12-Day War, claiming that Iran was going to build a nuclear weapon, was sold on a lie. These are wars of choice, once again, sold on lies. We don't have to do these, but we're doing them anyways. That's very worth pointing out because Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. They have a latent nuclear deterrent that they want to negotiate away. And the Trump administration is not doing good faith negotiations, as I've showed in other shows, that they basically allowed them, or they used negotiations as a tactic to get Iran to let their guard down or they could be struck easier. Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi has said Iranian forces are ready with their fingers on the trigger to immediately and powerfully respond to any aggression. Iran's deputy foreign minister Kazem Garibabadi said no negotiations with the United States are underway despite exchange of messages, according to the BBC. The human rights activist news agency has documented at least 6,479 people killed since the unrest began, including 6,092 protesters, including 118 children, and says it's investigating about 17,000 more reported deaths. Iranian authorities said last week more than 3,100 people had been killed and claimed most were security personnel or bystanders attacked by rioters. I love how people are taking this the direction of that event that happened back in the 40s, saying that like the number's way, way higher because you're just getting there. They said like 30,000 protesters were killed. Like, how would they kill 30,000 protesters in like a week or two? Like, guys, come on. Exercise alerts and what analysts see. U.S. Air Force's Central Command announced multi-day readiness drills across its region to demonstrate the ability to deploy, disperse, and sustain combat air power. AFCENT said the drills are meant to strengthen partnerships with the host countries and prepare for flexible responses, while CENTCOM, Central Command, said the Lincoln was sent to promote regional security and stability, which I don't know how you're promoting security and stability like that. The Times reported that long range bombers based in the United States that could strike Iran are on higher than usual alert, a posture raised nearly 3 weeks ago when Trump requested options to respond to the crackdown on protests in Iran. Analyst Eli Garanmea of the European Council on Foreign Relations told Al Jazeera that the current buildup may justify an attack on Iran's government as protecting civilians after the protests, but that could come at high risk. If America launches significant attacks, possibly with a regime change endgame, Tehran is likely to directly increase the cost to Trump in an election year by targeting American soldiers stationed across the Middle East, which I think is true. And once again, it is a real risk that they're running right now by committing to another potential war of choice with Iran. I don't imagine Trump is going to back down if the Iranians decide that they want to start killing Americans. They're going to escalate. And it's 2026. You got the midterms coming up. And how do you think it's going to reflect on the Trump administration when they have to start bringing home the bodies in body bags? For what? For Israel. Not all the wars were fought for Israel, but this is one that essentially is completely for Israel. There is no benefit to the U.S. Iran doesn't pose a threat to the U.S. They may pose a threat to, regional stability for Israel and regional hegemony for Israel. They don't pose a fucking threat to the U.S. Are you guys nuts? No. So if they commit to this and they start killing Americans, then it's not going to be good for the Trump administration electorally, not financially, nothing. There is no good that could come out of this. And polls are saying right now that he's not doing too hot. You're not getting mass deportations. You're not getting into the war. Inflation has calmed a little bit, but inflation's still there. They're just using the butchered CPI, which doesn't account for so much stuff that you could basically make that look like any economy's doing good. And they're bragging about all the GDP. Okay, Joe Biden had a 4.8% GDP at the end of 2023. Nobody would admit Joe Biden has a good economy because he didn't. Trump doesn't have a good economy either. And now Trump's saying that he wants to keep housing prices up. Okay, what about all the younger people who are looking for a house to buy? Fuck them, I guess, right? Boomer needs the line to go up because economy, economy, economy. Okay, well, what about the economy for people who are under the age of 50? I guess just screw them, right? It's ridiculous. It is fucking ridiculous. Um, anyways, let me continue on here. Other experts question whether Trump will act. Ali Vaiz of the International Crisis Group told Al Jazeera it's hard to imagine that a strike is imminent, arguing that the protests have been crushed and that military action would be costly without a clear end goal. He said any escalation could leave Iran's 92 million population bearing the brunt while remnants of the regime grow more repressive and more aggressive in the region. According to the Times, officials said that Trump has not authorized military action and remains open to a diplomatic solution after asking the Pentagon for options. Trump recently posted on Truth Social that he hopes Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal, no nuclear weapons, even as Iranian officials insist there are no formal talks. Okay, so yeah, that's about all for that there. I don't really have anything else for you guys today, but yeah, if you're on Twitter, no war with Iran, man. Just throw it out there. I don't support war with Iran. You shouldn't either. There's no reason to fight this war, and it just puts countless American lives at risk. There's no good reason for the U.S. to do this. My dear friend Fiorella and I talked a little bit about this on our show on Wednesday night. I know Nico and I talked about a little bit on Wednesday night, and we'll probably talk about it more this Wednesday. So make sure you go check out Nico's channel. Go subscribe over there. We like to do shows every Wednesday if we can. I try not to do shows on this channel in the middle of the week just because I like to spend time with my family, but I am a very, very busy man. That's one thing that I should have seen coming. Let's remember that President Trump has made his money or on real estate, so now I'm not surprised that he's joined BlackRock and such companies. Yeah, exactly. He let BlackRock basically run the Fed in 2020, and then now Larry Fink is still a good friend of his. He introduced him at the World Economic Forum just a couple weeks ago. So yeah, it's a stupid line of it's all one big club and you ain't in it. So yeah, I think that's about it. All I got for you guys. I don't have any guests planned in the future, so it's going to be more foreign policy streaming. Hopefully, our dear friend Dave DeCamp is back because that's where I get a lot of my news from. I've been watching some of the stuff over in China and Taiwan. Nothing really too much going on there. So, um, Russia vowed that they wouldn't come to Iran's defense, which to me isn't really that surprising because I don't think they want to expend any more military assets unless they absolutely have to. So yeah, I think that's about all I got for you guys. Go check out commoncrown.com. Please, please, please let me open up Substack here for you guys because I would love it. I would absolutely love it. And I would love you guys if you went over and checked out my Substack, where if you want something that's just a little bit easier on the ears, on the eyes, and just a little bit more easy listening, easy reading, go check out my Substack, The Great Megalodon, where I just talk about music. That's all it is. As you can see, guitars. I share some music stuff. I just did a Substack on Megadeth's last album. I felt I did pretty good on it. And if you'd be so inclined, feel free to go subscribe, check that out, and you can become a paying member over there as well for the lowly price. I think it's $5 a month or $60 for a year. Not very expensive at all. And I give you a little fun facts. And I'll probably be doing members only articles and stuff like that. So I just talk about heavy metal stuff over there. It's just real easy reading. I try to make it short, no longer than maybe 10 minutes. So that way, if you sit down and take a dump, you can figure out, hey, hey, I'm just going to read this. Maybe it's something about some old fact in metal. It's an album as to whether or not you should spend your time listening to the album. I try to save you time on what the best metal music out there is right now. So go check that out, The Great Megalodon. There's also a YouTube channel for that. I don't have any content up there yet, but I will get there. Go check out 5 Till Midnight. Go subscribe over there. Send us super chats over there because we are now monetized over there as well. Check out A Common Crown, tigerfitness.com. Use code Kyle at checkout. Everybody, if you're listening live, like. share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Please consider becoming a channel member for the lowly price of $2.99 a month. I will be hosting Rule Zero again eventually. I don't know when I'll get to it. My life has been so hectic and busy lately that I don't have time to do streaming on Saturdays. It's usually the days I get to spend with my wife and kid. So I think we're gonna wrap there. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. And I will see you guys tomorrow for 5 till midnight over on their YouTube channel. I will see you Wednesday over on Nico's channel, and I will see you next Sunday on this channel. So one more time, please like the video, make sure you're subscribed, and until next time, everybody, take care. No war with Iran.